Not only can we save the environment, not only can we improve our economy, we can create jobs and innovation and opportunity. What's preventing us from doing it is not the lack of technology or good plans or good ideas. What's preventing us from doing it is a lack of political will and an inability to bring people together around a new agenda for a new America. People look at our education system and they say to themselves, why is it at a time when we know that the economy is changing, we've got a global economy in which our young people are going to need an education now more than ever, and yet we see our math scores and science scores declining? We've got schools all through Texas, all through Illinois, all through California, where the rats outnumber computers, where teachers are underpaid, students are uninspired, and we know what to do. If we put money into early childhood education, we could prepare every child for school. We can pay our teachers more and give them more flexibility in the classroom. And if we do that, teachers want to be accountable. They want high standards for their kids, but they've got to be given the resources to accomplish that. And at a time where every young person in America knows they need skills, why would we make it harder for kids to go to college? Why would we raise interest rates on student loans? Why wouldn't we bring them down? We know we can do that. And most of all, people around the country are asking themselves why we were still in a war that should have never been authorized and should have never been waged. Austin, I am proud of the fact that way back in 2002, I said that this war was a mistake. I said that we should not give open-ended authority to a president because it would lead to an open-ended occupation. And despite the fact that some of us can disagree back then in terms of what we should have done, every single American at this point understands that after having spent $500 billion, after over 3,100 of our most precious resource, young men and women who have courageously gone over there and fulfilled their mission and done everything they had to do, everything that was asked of them, laid out their full measure of devotion. Despite all that, we are actually less safe than we were before this war started. Al-Qaeda is recruiting more terrorists. Afghanistan is slipping and sliding back into chaos. Austin, it is time for us to bring this war to an end. And we know the steps that can be taken. I've put in a bill that says that we can begin a phased withdrawal, a responsible withdrawal, one that lays out benchmarks for the Iraqi government to meet, that recognizes that we can't succeed if we put our young people in the midst of a sectarian civil war, that says that as we apply pressure on the Iraqi people and the Iraqi government to come together around a political accommodation, that we can redouble our diplomatic efforts around the region, that we won't abandon our presence in the region. We will continue to provide logistical support and training and counterterrorism activities in the area. But what we can't do is continue on the course that we're on, because it is leading to more death and more chaos and more destruction, and anybody who denies that is not looking at the facts on the ground. got a report that Tony Blair, our most stalwart ally in this whole process, when George Bush talks about a coalition, he's basically talking about Tony Blair. And Tony Blair this week announced that they are beginning a phased redeployment because they recognize that we are no longer in a situation in which we can solve the problems of Iraq militarily, that we can only solve them diplomatically and politically, and people have to come together. Now, if Tony Blair can understand that, then why can't George Bush and Dick Cheney understand that? In fact, Dick Cheney said, well, this is all part of the plan. It was a good thing that Tony Blair was withdrawing, even as the administration is preparing to put 20,000 more of our young men and women in. Now keep in mind, this is the same guy that said we would be greeted as liberators, the same guy that said we were in the last throes. I'm sure he forecasts some today. When Dick Cheney says it's a good thing, you know that you probably got some big problems. But understand that there's a human toll to this. I've been traveling across the country for the last couple of weeks, and in the last week alone, I have had 3 mothers come up to me on the campaign trail and begin to weep because their children are about to be deployed. We've got at least 300 Texan lives that have been lost in this war. Thousands more who've been injured, maimed, nerves shattered, limbs severed. And those mothers think about that. Those fathers understand that when those young people go over there without a clear sense of mission, that the possibility exists that they may never come home. And now, to make things worse, the same week that Tony Blair announced that he was pulling folks out, the administration announced that 14,000 National Guardsmen and women were going to be deployed there. Too soon to provide them the training they need. Many of them now without the armaments, the body armor, the reinforced Humvees that they need. And that's what those mothers are thinking about. They're thinking about the young man who came to one of my town hall meetings with his wife, 26 years old, had been in a coma for 6 months. An IED had exploded. He had been blinded in both eyes, a scar down the center of his face, unrecognizable to his family, 6 months after the injury, lost the use of one arm. And I remember talking to him, and he was talking about how he's putting his life back together again. And as he spoke, I actually looked at his wife and tried to imagine her trying to deal with the small children that they had and this husband. There's a human cost to this. This is not abstraction. This is not a matter of ideology. This is not a matter of us acting tough. This is a matter of understanding that when we ask our young men and women to sacrifice on our behalf, then we have to make sure that it's based on sound intelligence. We have to make sure that there's a strategy that makes sense. We have to make absolutely sure that the strength of our military is matched with the power of our diplomacy and the power of our alliances. We are doing that. It is time to bring our young men and women home.